So basically, deal making, which reached a peak in 2021, went into a major trough in 2022 for two primary factors. One is the sort of macro uncertainties, and we, have every one of them, right, from war and pestilence to interest rates and inflation, et cetera. And then the other was the tech sell-off that caused a dislocation in valuations. On the former, I don't think we're out of the woods there yet. We're still uncertainties as it relates to macro, but it feels like we have a handle on where things are going. We reached peak inflation 6 months ago. People are anticipating that we either will have a mild recession or maybe a soft landing. So I think some of the fear of the unknowns around the macro stuff has settled a little bit. We still have a war going on, but so that one's better, still not perfect. And as a consequence, interest rates are higher. We just did this big $750 million deal, but the point is it got done. Private equity deal, and it got funded with leverage. So they're doable, it's just that, it's a little bit more subtle. On the other front, that's probably had the greater impact, is the massive tech sell-off. And this sector in advertising is off between 70 and 75% off its highs in 2021. So when you're off 75%, that's a tough place to begin. And what happens when you get such a fast sell-off is you get this dislocation in valuation expectations. So buyers tend to reorient their thinking on price immediately by looking at stock prices, primarily their own. And sellers take a while to go through the 5 phases of denial and anger and bargaining and all that to finally acceptance, and that usually takes a number of quarters. We're now 3 quarters after that beginning of that tech sell-off, and it's starting to season. In which case, sellers are like, okay, this is the new reality, so we're either going to have to just play ball or wait for another time to transact.
Given those conditions, does that mean we'll see strategic deals or more likely companies settling because they have to sell?
Yeah. So I think we'll see deals across the board. I don't think 2023 is going to be a bonanza year for deals. But there are areas, the green shoot areas we call them, and CTV and commerce media that are logical for strategics to pick up capabilities, right? For them to compete, and that's almost unaffected by the sell-off because companies that are doing something unique where there's scarcity, those are two important things, right? Almost still can sell at big strategic valuations even today. So those are largely unimpacted by the tech sell-off, largely. Whereas you're right, there will be some, we call them capitulation trades, where companies, need to get bigger. They will be subject to market pricing. And so, if you have to trade, then yeah, we'll likely see those at lower valuations.
Speaking of CTV, when it comes to potential, it would seem to be there's opportunities to make a big acquisition, a transformative move, but some of the buyers are seemingly handcuffed by regulators like the Googles and Amazons. Is that going to play a role in how things shape out?
So there's a lot of people, a lot of different strategic buyer categories that are interested in CTV. Some of them are interested in CTV data. We sold a business called TrueOptic to TransUnion because they had a 80 million household graph, and that was important. So that's an A play on CTV. Honestly, if you have a major strategic interested in CTV, there's not a lot of inventory in the meeting. There's not a lot of companies, targets you can buy. There's publicly traded Magnite. I'm running out of names. I mean, there's MadHive in the local space. There's interesting companies like Tatari. And anyways, there are some companies doing some interesting things, but there's not that many. And what I particularly like is these intersections. So the intersection of CTV and local, I mentioned MadHive. The intersection of CTV and performance, Mountain, Tatari, TV Scientific. Those are really exciting areas because, remember, the whole promise and premise of CTV was to bring the digital attributes to the big screen of television. And effectively what it does is it democratizes TV ad spend, which historically was really just limited to major brands who had big national budgets. Now that you can find a niche audience on CTV, we're finding all these direct-to-consumer and other performance advertisers who coincidentally have just been kneecapped by Apple ATT, so they don't have those channels of Facebook and Instagram for their customer acquisition anymore. They're going to have to move to CTV, and we're already seeing it.
Speaking of intersections, how bullish are you with CTV and commerce coming together where we really see commerce advertising on television?
So that's a new muscle that the consumer is going to have to learn, right? Because historically, we've never done a click to buy on TV. It's never really been popular. In fact, it's largely been thought of as a little schlocky, right? QVC, HSN kind of esque. I think we might see a change to that. TikTok is kind of, they'll have a different format. It'll be a fun format. So we'll see. I think that's experimental right now, and if it goes big, we'll see. Largely, though, TV advertisers have not gone for that click.
I noticed you had a strong reaction to some of the comments this morning from the IAB CEO David Cohen about privacy and also Apple. Can you maybe give us your thoughts?
Look, Apple's a great company, but when Tim Cook comes out with harpsichord playing and talks about how he is on a mission to solve for the poor consumer who needs to be protected in a privacy centric approach by kneecapping all ad-supported media creation, and then turn around and ramp up their own very targeted ad network. You just look at the nomenclature, look at their language. When other people do it, it's surveillance, targeting. When they do it, it's personalization. Just the hypocrisy is just hard to look away. It's a little bit eye-rolling, honestly.
There was also a lot of talk about potential regulation and the industry having to get its act together.
Yep.
Yet we've seen the inability of Washington to get anything together. Is it something that you think it should be top of mind and something we're worried about this year?
Look, I think Europe is leading the way. Even they are somewhat fragmented because you've got the EU, then you've got Belgium, and you've got the UK, and then independent decisions are being made in France and in Belgium and Germany, I've noticed. So they're not perfect, but there's a lot more clarity there. By the way, the UX so the implementation of GDPR and the way it's fully manifested itself with a consent opt-in on every page load, every time, is a disaster. It's a UX disaster. I don't want to see that here. That would be stupid. Don't do that, Apple.
What about CTV and regulation? It's been under the radar, but do you think it's something that industry has to get on top of early?
I mean, TV is lightly regulated, and I would presume it will follow the same kind of...
But I mean privacy, I guess I should say, consumer privacy.
Oh, well, see, privacy advocates are never satisfied, right? So first they didn't like a 10-digit anonymous number that tracked your behavioral history and had some idea of your proclivities and interests. By the way, I think that's pretty privacy friendly, but no, they want to get rid of the cookie. Okay, fine. By the way, I don't think email addresses, hashes, that's not going to fly. That feels a lot more privacy invasive than 10-digit number. But yeah, I think maybe we'll see them come for IP addresses, in which case now CTV's got a problem.
Right.
So I don't know, they can't seem to satiate the privacy folks, and honestly, here's the problem. I think the industry has done themselves no favors in the way they handled the privacy incursion from the zealots, and I call them zealots because it's politicians looking for votes, and it's theoretical professors and the like that are taking it, that they're doing this whole privacy, uproar as an agent on behalf of the consumer. But the consumer never asked for this. So I think a lot of this was unfortunate, the way it played out. But again, the industry didn't do itself any favor. The way they treated it, the way they rolled slowly on it, the way they denied it outright first, and then they're looking, okay, a little bit. So it's been incrementalism. It's not been the industry's finest moment. So ALM is back, which is fantastic. 1,300 people here in Marco Island. By the way, love the location, David. And it's so great to, number one, see one another, and quantity is great that we have 1,300, but even better, quality, because what we learn about, we talk about issues in the industry here, but also do a lot of deal making. So IAB's tagline is "It starts here." I changed it to "Deal making starts here," because really this does kick off the year in terms of conversations. It's a great place to do it. We love it.